Do we as a people suffer from Stockholm Syndrome, a psychological response wherein a captive begins to identify closely with his or her captors or abusers, as well as their agenda and their demands? Do we devalue ourselves and others to the point that we somehow make ourselves believe that the inflictions brought upon us by another are somehow warranted, instigated, or even deserved? Do we value the freedoms of Black male abusers to the extent that we overlook the need to protect Black women victims, even if it's from a Black man? When I listen to people rationalize how the victim is a part of the problem, it makes me think of how some white people will relinquish their rights and freedoms if it means preventing another race from having what they have. What in the victim shaming and blaming is this world coming to? Okay, I know. That's no way to start a show. So I'll start over and I'll be right back, y'all. Hey, welcome to In Your Ear Radio. I am your host, LaToya. As you can see, I'm so very happy to be back with you guys. I missed y'all. Took a little break, but very happy to be back here. So I hope you guys are too. I hope you missed me and are happy to be back. So yeah, we're going to get into a lot today, but I definitely just want to thank you all for tuning in on Facebook and YouTube. It's a beautiful, lovely, I'm still in spring day. I got on my spring gear, my little bohemian, because I'm about to go and hang out with the fam after this. Yeah, shout out to all the graduates. Shout out to all the graduates. Yeah, it's graduation season and it's lit. Shout out to my nephew, Maj, who's going to be going to school. He's leaving and going to college from here. And then also my baby cousin, Duce, who graduated today. So we had two graduates yesterday and today. And to all the graduates, I know how you moms and dads are, especially the moms. I remember that fine day. It's been a while. My son's older now. But I was more lit about his graduation than he was. I got up early, had the champagne, had my outfit. It was just turn up season. I had a party, I didn't ask him no questions. I just did me because it was a celebration. I felt like, when our kids make it to that point, we feel like we got them there. We celebrate too because we got them there. And I was watching, if you guys haven't watched Forever, it's on Netflix. Cool. It's a cool series. I'm on the last episode, so I don't know what's really going to happen. I'm anticipating something's going to be a little, it's going to be a plot twist. But I'm just reflecting on the mother who got her son got into college. And she's celebrating, and she reminded me so much of myself when my son graduated, because she was, girl, they're trying to phone ring, outside celebrating. He's just sitting there looking nonchalant, like, yeah, like our boys do. Any of you have boys, most of them are very nonchalant and think we're over the top, and we are as mothers, because we birthed them, we love them, and we're excited about them. And so it was just so exciting to watch another mother do what I do. I love seeing, this is why we need representation when it comes to Black entertainment, because we need people that reflect us. Not that all humans don't respond a certain way, but it's something about a sister, the way that we act and respond. But anyway, the mother was lit. Forever on Netflix. I encourage you to watch it. They're picking up a season 2, so that's great. So yes, I just want to give a shout out. One of the fun things about this whole thing, even proms, you guys, even with proms, it ain't like how it was when I went to prom. Like, y'all be doing it's balloons, it's lit. I'm telling you, it's lit. Y'all, it's a whole party. And it's for the parents. We do this, the kids I think these kids are getting a little entitled and feel like that's what they should have. But these proms, these graduations, they not like what they used to be. They ain't low key. You know what I'm saying? I feel like if you're not really turning up, you just ain't got it like that. And it's nothing wrong with it because, it's nothing wrong with it, but I'm just saying it's a little different from my time with these proms and graduations. But an interesting thing about the prom is, most people go as couples, but I've noticed over the years that a lot of times people go not necessarily as couples. They go with their boys or they go with their girls, not as couples. But when proms first came into effect, it was initially in the white community specifically, to get matchmaking. So it was just to get the women a husband before they graduated high school, and of course it was segregated as well. So Black people weren't part of their whole thing. But that's why proms came about. Proms were literally set up as a formality to connect couples, so that the women would come out, the girls would come out of high school with the husband, because the history of that, and we won't get too much into that whole history and blah, 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 because we got a lot more to talk about. And before I continue, let me go ahead and share my video to my group for those two of you who are faithful and watch from my group in your ear radio. So let me do that now before I continue. So I've done this successfully and I can move forward. Okay, so shout out to everybody in the chat. GB's always first. You get the award. And shout out to Genuinely Poised, who says that she just finished Forever. Hey, this morning, yes, I was watching it last night, but I fell asleep on the last episode, so I got to start it over. Don't tell me what happened. So I hope I didn't read it. It made me think of my son, yes, who's a senior this year. Yes, it's a good series. It is. I really enjoyed it. Really, really enjoyed it. And also, so that was good. And also, if you want to find something else to watch, maybe as couples, our men love Westerns and shoot 'em up, bang, bang. But, I love a little dialogue and a storyline, and it gives a little history as well. But it's fictional. But it's called American Primeville. And it's also on Netflix, American Primeville. So I encourage you guys, if you're just looking for something to cuddle up with your sweetie with, it's a good thing to watch here and there, until y'all can, get to the end. We haven't gotten there yet, but it gives you the history of America, and it just reminds us how, certain people of a certain race like to mess with folks, like how the world would be peaceful if certain people of a certain race would just leave folks alone, but they just can't do that. Nah, baby, they ain't gonna be able to do it. You know what I'm saying? So that's what it is. So anyway, this time of year, the kids are getting money, gifts, and blah, 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 and all those great things. And it's great. And I remember having a conversation with one of my brothers talking about the susu, how some, families or maybe close friends, they do that. It's just a generational wealth, self-help thing where you're not using a bank or institution. You doing for self, FUBU, for us, by us. And with the susu, basically, you put money together, and as a group, maybe 10, 12 people, maybe more, maybe less. And you take that money, each person puts in the same amount of money each month, and then you pass it over to one person of the group, and you continue this so that everybody gets the money each month, and you start over. And I think that's beautiful, because that helps, people to be able to maintain, if you out of work or you need extra help, or maybe you take that money and you save it. And one thing that my brother was saying when I was mentioning it to him is that it would be a good idea for us to do that for our graduates, to maybe as a family, as a group, put money together to give to them, so that they can start off on the right foot, with a little bit of cushion. You know what I'm saying? He just suggested just giving it to them. I suggested maybe they use it as an investment, maybe for property, or maybe for education, maybe an investment, like, you can do like CDs, bonds. I think it's more important to invest it, especially at that age, because, you got a whole lot of time, God willing, to build that up. So just a little suggestion there for those of you who may be thinking, we got all these traditions going on with the balloons and the fancy cars. Maybe we can start putting money together, so that we can help our kids start off on a good foot, positive foot, with some little help. So that's something to think of if you're trying to think of what to do for your graduates. And since we got traditions going on, we turn up with the champagne, we can turn up with the money and help our kids as well. Let's get into some history real quick. Y'all know we're going to get into this conversation, and we're going to get into it because I have some questions, and I know y'all have some answers, and everybody has their opinion. If you've been following things that don't matter, this is from After Dark. We bring in the dark to the light today. So normally we talk about things that don't matter and some things that do on our After Dark show that usually happens at night with our cocktails and blah, blah, blah. But considering this conversation, I kind of liken it to what we do after dark, talking about the Diddy trial, which we're going to get into. And I Papo, let me look. Papos and Remy Ma, they didn't got my attention with they divorce. Oh, I hope they're getting paid for all this drama they got. We're gonna get into it because I have a perspective and I really want to, really dig into it. But y'all know that I'm gonna get into the other shenanigans that are happening, things that do affect us, that do matter, and that are important. So we're gonna get into that right now as well. So today, May 24th, 2025, this day in history, shout out to the first Black mayor of Detroit, Michigan. His name is Coleman Young. He was born again today in 1918. Unfortunately, he passed away in November of 1997. He was 79 years old and would be 107 today. But I didn't know much about him. Except when I was Googling what happened on this day as far as Black history. So I was like, that's pretty interesting. I got family in Detroit and I love, and I got to hang out with it and we had a great time. And I'm just so glad I got to see them and squeeze on them and enjoy them. But yeah, so he was born on this day and he was the first Black mayor of Detroit, Michigan. And he was born in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And he was narrowly defeated by a police commissioner, John F. Nichols. He narrowly defeated the police commissioner, John F. Nichols, who would later serve as the Oakland County Sheriff, to become Detroit's first Black mayor. Young won re-election by very wide margins in November of 1977 and in November of 1981. So he served between 1985 as well as 1989 for a total of 20 years as mayor. So there is a debate about his legacy, which again, I don't know much about to give you guys any, tea. But it's reportedly saying that most Black Detroiters consider him young, consider Young as a legend and a liberator, while some of the whites believe that he was corrupt militant who disliked white people. So from what I was reading, basically he just spoke out about, injustices and the discrimination. And of course, when you talk about racism as a Black person, you're considered racist. I don't know. How does that go? Shout out to Marmac, who's in the chat, who says, I put my kids on authorized users on a credit card. So once they graduate, they got credit history and a decent credit score. That's what's up. Thank you for bringing that up too, because that's something I wasn't aware of until later in life, that you can actually help build the credit of anybody, but especially your kids. If you want to start them off on the right foot, is put them on as an authorized user. You don't necessarily have to give them a card. That's up to you. If you want to teach them responsibility and you trust your kids, do that. But if not, at least, if you're good, you have good spending habits and they'll benefit from it. And then, of course, they can benefit. So that's definitely a good thing. Thank you for even bringing that up. Shout out to that. Also on this day, Patti LaBelle was born. That's my girl. I got to see her a few weekends ago, and it was a joy to be in her presence for the very first time. And yes, she flipped that shoe. And yeah, it was everything. Yeah, she was born in Philadelphia as Patricia Louise Holt. Y'all know she be burning in the kitchen. She's so down to earth. Anybody I've ever listened to talk about her talks about how down to earth she is, how, somebody I wouldn't mind just hanging out with, definitely one of the aunties that I probably would call my fave. So shout out to Patti LaBelle, who was also born on this day. Happy birthday. And of course, we have Heavy D. Heavy D, dilla D. What y'all know about that? What y'all know? What? Dude, he was heavy, right? But he know how to do that. He had that rhythm. And what I appreciate so much about Heavy D is his music, how he was always uplifting women. And his songs were just, you can bop your head to it and hear just such positive things about women. I just love and respect his whole angle. And of course, he was with the group, what was the group called? They were the first group that was signed by Uptown Records in the 90s, rap group, exactly, hip hop group, what they call it, I guess, in the 90s. And the group, I know one of the members passed away. What was it? Trouble T. Troy. He died at the age of 22 during, the peak of their, whole vibe, the whole industry. But what was the name of the group? Heavy D and the Boys. Heavy D and the Boys, duh. Heavy D and the Boys, that's what it was. So yeah, but yeah, Heavy D, he was Jamaican born. And when I was thinking about that, I said, this is a good time to just, reflect on just the thought of him being Jamaican, because, I think a lot of times we confuse race with your nationality. So by him being Jamaican, and also a black man. We would consider him black, but he would consider himself Jamaican, so a black Jamaican. And so I think it's a good point to just make that it's not wherever you're born is where you're born, right? I was born in America, so you would consider me an American, but I'm also a black woman. So if I had been born in Europe, you can consider me European, but I'm also a black woman. So you can't identify a person's race based on where they were born. So, just that whole conversation when we were talking about the former Vice President Kamala, how people were disputing her ethnicity based on where she was born or who her parents were, where her parents were born. Listen, white people created race based on skin color, so we go on with it. Everybody that's brown is black. Okay. And where you were born is where you were born. So you can say, yeah, you're Mexican, you can, whatever country you're from, of course you identify that because that's part of the culture. But there are white Jamaicans, there are white Mexicans. It is what it is. But yeah, shout out to Heavy D. Unfortunately, he did pass away at the age of, how old was he? Because he would have been 58 today, but he did pass November 8th, 2011. And they said he died of a pulmonary embolism. So that is brought on by obesity and being immobile and traveling by planes. You get blood clots and things of that nature. So that was unfortunate. Very, very sad when he passed, because to me, you just took a chunk of positive hip hop and just uplifting Black women and women in general away from our music, because you don't hear a lot of that. Not to say that there isn't music being made to celebrate women, the mothers of the earth, the ones who bring forth life. But a lot of what we hear is, opposite of celebrating women. It's basically to demean women. And we'll have a conversation. We're going to talk about it a little bit more, on the surface, because I do want to dig deeper into it after dark when we do a show with my day ones. But yeah, we'll get into that. But I just appreciate what Heavy D brought to the music industry. And I haven't heard anything like it. Y'all can name an artist, hip hop artist, that you've heard in today's time that would be equal to what Heavy D brought to the table, as far as just positive, good energy, dance vibe, everybody can listen at once, backyard barbecue type of vibe. Yeah, but just on the heels of that, knowing that he died of what is considered a blood clot. This is National Stroke Month. So if you guys aren't aware, this is National Stroke Month, and I don't know if it's because of my age. As I'm getting older, I'm hearing of more and more people dying of strokes. Some of our greats have died of strokes, and some have lived and survived and have thrived. And if they didn't tell you, you wouldn't know. So there's different outcomes when it comes to stroke, but either way, it's very scary. It could be very dangerous. It kills your brain cells, and just recognizing recognizing strokes in general gives us the opportunity to share information and, of course, give people the understanding of how to help themselves and prevent having a stroke, or what they can do if they see the signs of someone having a stroke. Each year in the United States, over 795,000 people have strokes, and 610,000 of these cases are new, first-time strokes, and 137,000 of those who experience a stroke die, okay, of those 700,000 plus. Sadly, as most things negative here in the United States, and based on systemic racism, I must say, but Black men and women rank the highest in strokes, and these affect our people, Black men and women between the ages of 20 and 40 years of age, have strokes at a higher rate than any other race. 1 in 4 are at risk for having a stroke after having one. So if you know someone who's had a stroke, the probability of them having another is 1 in 4. Fortunately, up to 80% of second clot related strokes may be preventable. The thing about strokes is that I learned just listening to a doctor previously is there's two types of strokes. One where there's blockage to where the blood doesn't get to the brain, and then the other one where there's blockage to where you hemorrhage on the brain. So there's more blood. So there's two different types of them. I can't remember which one is more successful in reducing, not having the extent or a huge effect on brain damage. But just catching it before it really goes into effect is is what's going to help benefit people who are suffering from a stroke, having long-term effects or permanent damage. And something that people, doctors use, it's an acronym. It's called FAST. And these are some of the ways that you can recognize a stroke. And this way you can help someone, pretty quickly if you notice these symptoms. So if their face is dropping, you see somebody drooping, you know what I'm saying? Looking a little, the mouth, the corners of their mouth or something like that, or the face just seems like it's drooping, or there's, you're experiencing, or someone is telling you they're having arm weakness, the speech difficulties, they start to, now I have braces, so I struggle because they got all kinds of stuff going on with these braces, but people who may have speech difficulties or slurring their words, that may be a sign of a stroke. But if you see a person with these types of symptoms, face dropping, arm weakness, speech difficulties, dial 911. Get up, get down. Hopefully 911 ain't a joke in your town, okay? Because you were going to need them. And I know some people say give them a baby aspirin immediately, and just get them help right away. So ways to prevent even having a stroke is getting enough rest. Rest is so important. It's just like charging your battery. In order for your phone to work, in order for your car to work these days, anything that you use that's battery operated, it needs the juice. So you got to give yourself the juice and get sufficient rest, at least 8 hours at night. I know for us as adults, we got problems, money bills, we got stuff going on. We need to be up thinking about it, but we need to figure out how to get our rest. Not all that caffeine before bed, deep breathing, exercises, maybe some yoga, maybe drink earlier in the day than later, things of that nature. But having a healthy weight is important too. Even, after you get a certain inches around your waist, it makes you more susceptible to being diabetic. Some people, for me, I'm just superficial. Is it superficial? Yeah, you just want to look good in your body contrast. But the other benefit of keeping that stomach down is reducing, getting diseases such as diabetes or strokes and heart attacks and things of that nature. Very important because cancers live in sugar too. So cutting back on sugar, exercising, you got to get that blood flowing, keeping that oxygen. Oxygen is necessary to keep the body going, and it's good for the brain, and it reduces catching Alzheimer's or whatever the symptoms are of having Alzheimer's and dementia. Walking 2 miles a day, every day is a good thing. Shout out to my grandma. She's 92. Is she 92 yet? And trust me, she looks good. Good. That's with a DT at the end. No smoking. Smoking definitely hardens your arteries, constricts the passageways so that blood get into your brain, and manage your blood pressure. You want to make sure that blood pressure stays normal. You don't want to have high blood pressure because that, again, causes constriction of your arteries as well. And then there's a term they call atrial fibrillation, which is meaning irregular heartbeat. Some people have it. Some people it may be on, something that comes and goes. But if you have experienced that, you need to be monitored and make sure that that is managed so that you are, a victim of a stroke. Okay. We just heard, just thinking of cancer and diseases, our former President Biden has stage 4 cancer, prostate cancer, and cancer that has traveled into his bones. Y'all know I got thoughts and things, right? Yeah. Shout out to Marmac, who said that Black folks are got to start doing more preventative maintenance on our bodies. We take better care of our cars than we do ourselves. Hey, can you say that a little louder for the people in the back? Get the mega horn going. We do, and it's sad because the simple things that we can do, we don't do. If we're not taking better care of our cars, we're taking better care of other people. We're making sure they're okay, but we're not looking out for ourselves. And just because we look good and maybe we feel okay, when I say okay, I mean we don't feel great, but we accept, a minimum mediocre way of feeling. We neglect ourselves. And I'm speaking to myself too, because, we go through so much, dealing with trauma, just dealing with everyday life. Life be life. And sometimes we need to have a cocktail. We feel like, hey, look, I need some fried chicken in my life. Whatever it is, it's going to soothe you and get you through life. I'm like, hey, we're going to die of something, so we might as well live. Well, I remember, what's his name from that passed away of diabetes. He failed me. The mogul over, what is it? Ashanti dated him anyway. Brain fog. anyways, he passed away of diabetes. And that was one of the things he said, that he was going to live. His kids encouraged him to eat better after being diagnosed with diabetes, just changing your diet. And it's not a death sentence and it's not a punishment, but there's a lot of delicious things that we can ingest. There's a lot of good things we can eat. We substitute mashed potatoes for mashed cauliflower. And I don't make them to where it's like, I don't want this. I make them to where they're flavorful. You add a little cream cheese, maybe you add your regular garlic powder, or, you can still flavor it. Maybe a pinch of salt, maybe not, because you really don't need it. Because if you're adding the cream cheese, it has salt in it, it's going to do this stuff. There's so many different ways that you can alternate. And you don't have to do this all the time, but just different ways to reduce the intake of things that are going to cause your blood pressure to go up. As we get older, unfortunately, speaking of cars need maintenance too. When they brand new, they fresh and clean, battery working. But after 4-5 years, you got to change out the battery. You got to change the tires. You got to change out the fluids. Next thing you know, you got a whole new transmission. You know what I'm saying? Our bodies are no different. Wear and tear over the years will cause us. Irv Gotti, thank you so much. Thank you, Marmac, in the chat. Irv Gotti, yeah, he died from complications associated with diabetes, which include heart, hypertension, high blood pressure. All of that comes with it. So if you can keep diabetes away, you can keep a whole lot of other things away. If you can keep that blood pressure down, you can keep a whole lot of things away. If you can keep that sugar low, you can keep cancer away and a whole lot of other things. But yeah, so we definitely have to maintain our vehicles, and our vehicles would be, shout out, I got somebody in the text too. Thank you, sweetie. My sweetie told me Irv Gotti too. He listened to me. He always listens. He's one of my top fans. He tells me that, and I appreciate him for it. So yeah, we got to treat same way we go do those oil changes. We need to treat our bodies, the same way. So yeah, so I'm, on the topic of Biden though, now I'm starting to wonder, which is what I was saying all along. These people worked overtime to make sure that he wasn't going to get the presidency, because they were fearful that as the vice president, Kamala being the vice president, that they thought he was old and unable, and maybe he was at his end of his timeline, that she would become president. They didn't want her to be president as a woman, and especially not as a Black woman. And then of course, they definitely weren't going to let her be a vice president or run as president on her own. So now I'm kind of wondering, did they know some things we didn't know as far as his health? Because, they talked about him stuttering. That's not a health condition. That's not a disability. Obviously, he's very intelligent. He has a education to back him up, and in law, to be specific, as far, he's been in the Senate, all of those things. But it just makes me wonder now, like, did y'all know something we didn't know? And now I'm still mad at the Democrats that were saying he needed to step down, because it didn't make a difference. Y'all I feel like y'all sabotaged. But anyway, I digress, because we got a lot to talk about. And I'm just so happy to be with y'all today. Shout out to everybody on Facebook. Get in the chat, y'all. I like to engage. And I know a lot of you guys are doing your thing, because again, it's celebration time. A lot of kids are graduating, and I ain't mad at you. So if you're listening later, you're doing a replay, I love you for it, and I appreciate you for it as well. Hey, did you guys know here in Nevada that we are not going to have daylight savings times anymore? I just learned this maybe 2-3 weeks ago, but it just moved past me. I forgot to even mention it. But yeah, so there was a bill passed here in Nevada. It's called Lock the Clock Act, Assembly Bill 81. It passed the House, again, 3 weeks ago, from a vote of 27-15. I don't know what the partisan was, Republican, Democrat majority. I don't know who voted majority. But this Lock the Clock Act would keep Nevadans exempt from daylight savings time, and it goes into effect in 2026, putting Nevada 1 hour behind other states in the Pacific time zone, which would be between March and November. So the only other states that do not do daylight savings, that's when we spring back and fall forward. You know what I'm saying? When you got to spring back, which putting your clock back an hour, fall forward, when you're putting your clock up an hour. I love that spring back. I love that. I mean, fall back. I love that fall back. Lean back, lean back, lean back. Okay, anyway, so Arizona and Hawaii are the only two other states. Nevada's going to join them, so it's going to be a trio, y'all. It's going to be like a triple threat as far as not having daylight savings. And y'all's president, he's been talking about just making it national. I don't know where that is, because he just executive orders everything. He does not allow the House, the Senate. He doesn't allow people to do their jobs, to be able to speak for the people. He's going to speak for everybody because, like he told y'all, he wanted to be dictator for a day. He wants to be king. So that is what it is. Okay. So shout out to Shanta, who's in the chat, who said there was an official statement was released, no history of prostate cancer. Oh, yeah. And I heard a woman say in reference to Biden, because people were saying, oh, he knew this. And then you got y'all little cuckoo ass president who was like, how do you not know you have stage 5 cancer? Can somebody get him? Please? But anyways, so yeah, they were saying there was no history of it. They weren't aware of it. And listening to another woman who said that her father went through different stages of cancer, but going to get regular checkups, they did not detect it. And then boom, on another regular checkup, it was like, you got 6 months, and he ended up living longer. But so who knows, right? Who knows? It shoulda, coulda, woulda. That's the life we live, y'all. That's the life we live. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. We're always thinking back. We're looking back. I think Lot's wife got frozen for that. She turned into stone. So I don't know if looking back is what is the right thing to do, but we have to, sometimes it has to be in retrospective. We have to learn from past, experiences to understand or to know how to move, even though they say everything happens now, right? I'm getting a little deep right now. Everything happens now. And so what does that mean? Okay. She said 1 year, Shanta's adding back to the conversation. She said 1 year, my dad's cancer screening was clear. And the next year, how scary is that, y'all? How scary is that? And just knowing the history, this is a man who eats well. I don't know if he decided to change his diet after learning of his diagnosis, but I know for sure up since he had been diagnosed, or at least I've been aware of it, that he, ate, whole foods. Whole foods include just eating things, as a woman said, I think it was Larry Daniel Favors, I listened to on Sirius XM Urban View, eating things that God put here for you and me, for us. I ain't say we, but he put that here too. But eating things non-processed. So a lot of us eat processed food, things that are processed or things that are actually, it's a process versus it's already here. It grows up from the ground. When you process it, you have to add ingredients and make it taste a certain way. So even for you vegan people, you're eating processed food sometimes too. If you're mixing it to make it taste like beef, chicken, or whatever it is, it's processed. It's a process that it goes through. So you have to be careful and mindful of what you're ingesting, even as you are not eating meat. But yeah, that, prayers. Yeah, a tough topic to touch. All of us know someone who has been affected by cancer, and it's really, really difficult. But what I know for sure is many people have survived, even with prostate cancer, have come out on the other end. I have a relative who's way up in his 90s who I was told was diagnosed, and somehow whatever regimen he did worked out for him. Shout out to Sherry, who's in the chat, who wanted to add in Facebook. Thank you for joining me in the Facebook chat. She said, wow, that's good to know. I used to love to get that extra hour of sleep. Right. You know what I'm saying? I need my rest. I call it beauty rest, and it's a real thing, you guys. It's a real thing. So for those of you who are just tuning in, yes, y'all saw the headlines. Why is the victim the one to blame? We're going to get into it, okay? But we're going to talk about some other stuff, because we victims being blamed for other stuff in life and the political stuff that really, really matters to us. And, blaming the victim is an issue that we're going to talk about and get into. But like I said, it's a lot that's been going on. I missed you guys last week, and I really want to catch up on what's been going on if you're not aware. Take care of your bodies, y'all. Take care of your bodies. We don't know the day or the time, but we can maybe maintain a good quality of life while we're here. We've not here for a long time, maybe just a good time. Let's have a good time. Let's treat our bodies right. Let's treat our bodies better than we treat our cars. Also, I'm reading this report that just came out per Black Enterprise that reveals that Black women lost the most jobs in April, and changes in DEI could partially be to blame. Have y'all heard anything about this? We Black women have been thriving. We've opened up the most small businesses. We have the most degrees. We've been doing our thug thizzle since we've had rights as women and freedoms that equal to what men have. Maybe not the same pay wages, but since we've been allowed to do us since the 70s, we've been on the incline, not decline. But of course, these type of things taken away, things that were put into place to help us be on a level playing field, not for privilege, not for advantage, because we still have to have knowledge and education and experience, which a lot of, as you see in this administration, don't have. They just have to have the skin tone. But for us, on top of having what is necessary and what should be education, experience, we also had to fight racism. So we, thanks to those who came before us, who got bills passed and legislation that gave us affirmative action and diversity, equity, and inclusion, which means that these federal companies that get our tax dollars, black, white, green, purple, tax dollars that are put into these government agencies, state agencies, buildings, institutions that we pay into, were excluding us because they were not being slapped on the hand. They were not being held accountable. How does that, where they do that at? I'm paying into this system and you telling me no. And you letting white people get first dibs, underqualified, and then telling people the only reason why we got these jobs is because we're black. No. We got them because we're intelligent. Wise and intelligent. We have the education, we have the will, and unfortunately, we live in a country that's built on racism and discrimination. Okay, and so taking away these protections, the things that would allow us to get our foot in the door and be able to do what this administration is trying to take, say that we're not doing and try to take away, and at the same time trying to take away from us the ability to take care of our families, to feed our families, to send our kids to college, to be independent, not have to rely on SNAP and Medicaid and some of the things that some of us may have. And that's what it's for, right? Because those are our tax dollars. Ain't nobody digging into their deep pockets in any Congress, Senate, or presidency to pay us out. This is our money put into a pot, distributed and allocated to us to help society. Because if we care about the United States of America, which includes all human beings, then we want to have a productive, functional society. You go to certain countries where, for India, for example, they put money into teaching customer service. For example, you go to some countries where they put money into their people for technology because they know that this money will stimulate the economy. So education is the key. You educate the people, and then you have a rich country for all. And then you don't need all of these subsidies to the degree that here in the United States we do, because we got a punk ass government. I'm just saying.com. But anyway, so while the overall unemployment rate for April of 2025 remained unchanged, stats released by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics show that the Black women lost 38,000 jobs and their unemployment went up by 106,000. This is according to Creative Investment Research. Bloomberg notes that the unemployment rate for Black women was a full percentage point higher. That was 6.1% compared to 5.1% in March. And this rate has been on the rise since February of 2024. Some of the steady decline in the employment is particularly contributed to the decline of the workforce as a result of initiatives being pushed by y'all's president's administration. Okay, as Afrotech previously told y'all, if y'all know Afrotech, and if they told y'all that they said they did, I'm just saying. I'm reading from Black Enterprise. They said, as Afrotech previously told you, it struck down diversity, equity, and inclusion, again, DEI initiatives at the federal level, and many corporations have followed suit to ensure their procedures are in alignment. We saw that with Target. Shout out to Target. Y'all losing money, ain't you? Listen, y'all deserve it, punks. Scary. Either you was already racist and you just needed a reason an excuse to back out, or you a punk and you being bullied. And in order to thrive in this world and to maintain your rights, you have to fight. So one or the other, I can't respect either one, okay? So Black women workers at the federal level have declined by an estimated 33% within the last year in comparison to a 3.7% drop across the workforce overall per Bloomberg. And again, I'm reading from Black Enterprise. But just some stats here. 1.5 million people work for the federal government, right? Okay, so y'all see all these job cuts. Again, this is one of the reasons why we have many of us have access to good government job, DEI, and affirmative action. These jobs is what someone told me back in the day. It's a real job because you get paid sick leave, you get paid medical leave, you get paid vacation, you get a livable wage, you get cost of living increases, all of the perks and the benefits that a job should be, just for the human to be able to maintain, a government job provides. So that's why people want it. You go work at other places with the same education, same work, job task, and you may not have that security that a good government job can give you. So that's why, the majority of the Black population that can get into these jobs, get into them. And again, we were pushed out up until we had those protections, affirmative action and DEI. But again, of the 1.5 million people working for the federal government, 61% of those people are Black. White, they're white. 18.2% are Black. And of that 18.2%, 11.7% are Black women. Okay, so 61% make up. The white people got it locked. How are we taking your jobs? How are we preventing you from getting a job? How are you not getting a job because they had to give a job to a Black person? It's a very small percentage that they have to let in, but there is a percentage. And that's because there are amendments and legislation put into effect to allow us the opportunity for the same things you want. A pursuit of happiness, the white picket fence, be able to take care of our kids. We're not getting these jobs to try to hurt. Come on. We want the same things. 99.5% of those in federal government are Hispanic. And they say that most of the Hispanic population is underrepresented because they are 18.9% of the population, which supersedes the Black population, which they say is 14%. But a lot of people don't want to claim their ethnicity. And I get it. I can't be mad at you. Who wants to be Black? I do. But I just understand why you wouldn't want to be, considering how they treat people of color. So that's what it is. But men overall make up the majority in the government workforce, if you guys didn't know, which is over 55% compared to others, which is 44% of the workforce. So data that I'm giving you is from the Office of Personnel Management report. This report is a result of President Joe Biden's executive order, which tasked the office with creating a data-driven approach to promote diversity inclusion in the federal workforce. Over 557,000 employees took part in this survey, as I was giving you that data. And think about it now. The current administration does not want us to have any data. They're firing people in positions to gather this data and keep this information, factual information, public. And why? Because they don't want you to know what they're doing to suppress people's pursuit of living, being able to take care of themselves. They want to be able to discriminate and be racist in private. And so this is why all of these, divisions, they tell you that because it's just a waste, wasting money. No, you wasting money on war, motherfucker. Yeah, I said it. You wasting money on, you wasting money mainly on war. You wasting money on planes. You wasting money on golfing. You wasting money on Tulsa. You wasting money on a lot of things that don't matter to the majority here, the mass of us. What is it? Are we at 400 million yet? Humans here in the United States of America. But you tell the people that, because people that don't listen with a third eye and read, listen with a third ear and read with a third eye, all they go is by the headlines. They just go by the headlines. Oh, we're just cutting back to save money. No, you're cutting these programs because you want to be able to hide your racism. You want to be able to do it in the dark. Okay? You want to turn off the lights. You're not Teddy Pendergrass. You're not. Okay? I'm just telling you that. So anyway, yeah, this is why these programs were important. Ain't nobody begging you for nothing, but you can't take my money. I'm not going to have taxation without representation. And that's exactly what this government is doing. They want a smaller government, but you still taking my money. You want to have small government. You fund all these things that you support because you take away everything that matters to us, but you want us to pay for what you support. You're not giving us any say-so in how our money is allocated. You're not even using the 3 branches of government that was put there for protections so that you wouldn't be able to do this. What you're doing, just doing executive orders and middle fingers up to judges and the law and just doing what you want to do. Meanwhile, you know what I'm saying? Meanwhile, y'all's president ran on no tax on tips. Was it y'all's president or both of them? Was it the vice president as well? Do y'all remember who was running on that? I know he mentioned it, but I was like, he's full of, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, he sits in the commode, he gets out, he smells like it. Let me sip my tea. So there was a bill passed, no tax on tips. It's a No Tax on Tips Act. And that was just passed in May 20 of 2025, just passed. So the United States Senate passed a bill to eliminate taxes on overtime, but the change may not happen for a while. So Senator Ted Cruz, who is a Republican of Texas, introduced this bill in January. It was brought up for a voice vote by Senator Jackie Rosen of Nevada. That's our representation here in Nevada. It passed with unanimous consent, a rare occurrence for a substantive legislation. The deduction would apply to cash tips worth up to $25,000. This matters a lot here in Nevada, especially Las Vegas, where, you know, our hospitality driven. We don't have state tax here because, you know, we get a lot of revenue from the casinos, you know, from people gambling and spending in the tourism. So a lot of people are in the hospitality industry. They survive off these tips. So this matters. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I think it's a good look, but there's always a catch to it, right? But anyway, so this would apply to tips worth up to $25,000. People who earn up to $160,000 could claim it, and the amount would rise along with inflation. Yeah, whatever. Listen, y'all bring up the cost of living. I mean, y'all bring up the cost of housing. You bring up the cost of food, the cost of gas, the cost of education, the cost of clothes, cost of lipstick, the cost of everything, but you don't increase wages. And then you fight tooth and nail to increase the federal minimum wage. How is it legal that you can say you have to pay double to triple the amount of rent, but your wages stay the same as they have been? When did the minimum wage ever change? I think has it been 50 years? I can't remember exactly. I'd have to go look. But the minimum wage has been the same for decades, okay? And cost of living has gone up. I think these things should work together, right? But how is it legal? So, yeah, so they're saying, you know, to avoid rising inflation, whatever. So their ending taxes on tips would cost around 110 billion reportedly in federal revenues over the next 10 years. So again, this is money that goes back into, these taxes go back into the federal pot, and they distribute it how they want. They give it to Elon, they give it to these big corporations, bail their asses out, and then tell us, we're taking away SNAP. We're taking away Head Start. We're taking away lunch for kids. We're taking away Medicare. We're taking away Medicaid. We're taking away low-cost prescriptions. We're taking away all of the things that, you know, our elders need for, you know, just to maintain. Because remember, they're living on a fixed income. You take all these things away, then you take all of our money and allocate it to the rich people. Stay woke. Yeah, so they're saying, yeah, it's going to affect for the next 10 years. And they say these estimates are according to this Peter G. Peterson Foundation. So the House has been working to pass this one. It's called the One Big Beautiful Act. Guess who came up with that name? I don't know, but it's One Big Beautiful Act. Who does it sound like? And this is part of it. So the One Big Beautiful Act is an umbrella. Underneath is a whole bunch of other bills that they're trying to pass. Two of them that they're saying have passed are no taxes on tips and no overtime. The Senate account only applies to taxes on tips right now. So that's what it is. And it's supposed to go into effect and be applied to paychecks between 2026 and 2034, which is confusing to me. So that y'all just give it for a certain time frame. Y'all just trying to get a run to see how it works, or y'all just, yeah, I don't know. So, and anyway, how is the Senate passing something and it hasn't passed the House? Like, I know a little bit about, a little bit about civics. But anyway, maybe they just wrote it wrong, but that's what it said. That's what they said. Just a little history on tipping before we move on, you guys. Tipping originated in Europe. And, you know, they did this back in the 17th century in England. The act of tipping was common among aristocrats who gave extra money to their hosts and servants. This gratitude for exceptional service, it slowly morphed into a social custom that signaled wealth and status throughout Europe. So they did it just to, you know, good look, you did good. Kind of like what we supposedly do now, except I feel like we do it as an obligation because we know that people are only getting paid anywhere from $2 to $7 an hour, and they rely on those tips. Well, so whether they're good or bad, we feel an obligation, some of us, you know, we cold with it. We stand on business, and we ain't tipping you, or you ain't getting that kind of tip, that 18, 25%, unless, you know, you really, really earned it. you know. But anyway, so tipping was brought over to America by wealthy Americans traveling back from Europe. During the 19th century, it grew from a cultural import to a widespread practice. However, its adoption was met with resistance from many who viewed it as contrary to democratic ideals, equating it with a form of bribery. Okay. Post Civil War, however, following the Civil War again, tipping took a new turn, especially in the southern states. Establishments used tipping as a way to circumvent wage laws during Reconstruction, forcing freed slaves to depend on tips. Again, I'm going to read this again because I need y'all to do the knowledge and understand the history of tipping as it relates to some of our ancestors. So, post Civil War, tipping took a new turn, especially in the southern states. Establishments used tipping as a way to circumvent wage laws during Reconstruction, forcing freed slaves to depend on tips instead of earning a stable wage. This led to a system where America's restaurant workers increasingly relied on customers' tips for their livelihoods, shaping the tipping culture that persists today. Imagine that. These white folks go with it, ain't it? They didn't want to pay them, so they said other people gonna pay them. We live in a racist country. How many of them formerly enslaved people do you think got tipped? Okay. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's just weird. It's just weird. How are you so evil? I'm just saying. So the federal minimum wage again is $7.25 an hour. Really. So I remember my uncle used to always tease when I was a kid. He was a dealer, and he was like, I only make, I think it was even probably $5 and something he was making out. I can't remember what he said he made. He could have said $2, but it was a low dollar. I probably was making more than him working at a fast food restaurant. But of course, he was living good, had owned a home. He had nice cars, had one of them big phones. Y'all know about them big phones, huh? The big phone that we used to have them cell phones. So, them tips was doing, them tips was serving him well. And so, but who's paying? We're paying for that, right? And I always think about that because, they got this gang. They really, really, really did a number on us. They build these beautiful buildings, and a lot of time by way of taxpayer dollars. And then we pay to enter these buildings. We pay to stay at these buildings. We pay to eat at these buildings. We pay for entertainment. We pay to drink all the libations, whatever it is we do when we go into these buildings. And then we pay the wages of those who work there by way of tipping. They got it all figured out. Lazy asses. You're going to figure out how not to work if it kills you. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, slavery was abolished, but y'all found another way to keep your asses flat. Okay, yeah, I said it. So tip credits enable. So there's a thing now that they have now with tip credits. So it enables your employer to count part of your tips towards your wages, right? So however, if your tips plus the tip minimum wage don't add up to the federal minimum wage, your employer must make up the difference. Okay, so the practice of tip credits can affect menu prices. So now the prices go up because, again, they don't want to pay these people a reasonable wage. Y'all, we didn't tip them enough. So now we'll just charge y'all some more. Y'all, what in the pimping is going on here? Y'all see y'all know what's happening? Somebody put powder on their hand. They going around slapping folks. Somebody put the prices up. They put powder on their hands and they're going around slapping folks. Somebody put the prices up. Okay, anyway, I think they should cut it. But anyway, so the menu prices go up when they're not matching because they don't want to pay out of their pocket. They don't want to pay people a living wage. They want to eat good and eat steak and shrimp and live in the finest houses and pay for the finest, who, sex workers. But they don't want other people to have that luxury. Okay. Even though that's not many of our aspirations. We just want to be able to eat and take care of our families, okay? So since employers might raise prices to cover higher labor costs due to recent adjustments in minimum wage or inflation, they raise the prices. So in lieu of traditional tipping, some restaurants now add a mandatory service charge to the bill. This, again, I talked about that. So isn't that something though? It's really, really something. Yeah. But here's something I want to get into, and I want to sip my tea first, and we're just going to go ahead. Let me just go ahead and just show you what I'm about to get into. Why do we victim blame and shame? Why do we do it? This conversation prompts, everybody, what the buzz is. That the rap mogul, P Diddy, he's always been rumored to be, a little freaky, doing some little strange things in the privacy of his domain. But now it's come to light. The feds was watching, and now he's been brought to the courtroom. As y'all know, he's been incarcerated since last year. His trial just started in this month of May, and he's accused of sex trafficking and racketeering charges. And I was talking to one of my friends, and they were asking the question of, do you think he's going to get off? And my response was no. Hers was yes. I think the consensus was yes. Just based on, remember, none of us have access to what's going on in the courtroom. We relying on journalists, reporters, and other people to tell us what it is. And hopefully they're giving us blow by blow facts. But based on the information that we're provided, we're making our own decisions on where we're at with this case that is slated to last 8 weeks. And what I think we're in week 2, maybe week 2, maybe 3, I can't remember. But the conversation was, do you think he's going to win? He's going to lose a case or win a case. And I think that he's going to lose the case because, you know, historically with federal cases, some have been lost, but historically the majority, a overwhelming majority of federal cases are won by those who bring them to the courtroom. And because they're watching and they're building the case, they're gathering data, they're gathering evidence, they're doing what needs to be done in order to successfully win a case. Because remember, this is money, time is money, and they need to have a win. And just like in the arena, we talk about boxing. Shout out to Clarissa Shields. I want to talk about that Remy Ma and Papoose too. I need to get into that, and so I can just get it out of my system because I'm tired of them too. I'm tired of them, but I need to get my little after dark during the daytime for a minute. So we talking about some stuff that don't really matter until we start getting into it, because a lot of things that I talk about anyways, it might be something that doesn't matter, but then we talk about what really matters, because I'm asking why are we blaming the victim. And again, so the conversation is, well, he's not going to win because they're making this about abuse, physical abuse, battery, and that's not what this case is about. And I said, no, this is what's helping build the case, because they're showing how his cruelty, his abuse, and his, the bullying that he did caused certain people, including Cassidy, Cassie. I said Cassidy. That's a rapper. I know him too. Yeah. Got my drink and my two-step, my drink and my two-step, my drink and my, okay. Anyway, so Cassie led her to do the things that she did. So the defense, their opening statements, as I recall being reported, was that this is not about an abuse. You're going to come to form an opinion that, yeah, maybe this was a bad guy. Maybe he was, a freak. Maybe he had a drug issue, but this is about trafficking. So this information that we're getting about his abuse and his aggression and how he treated people is relative to the fact as to how he was able to get people to do what was done that they consider illegal. You heard them say that she gave money for sex. That's illegal. It's not legal unless you come out here in Nevada. I think it's Bundy somewhere. I can't know the name of it unless y'all further know. I don't get involved in all that. But it's in Nevada somewhere. Sex is legal. Sex work exchange, change exchange for some change, something like that. You can do that. But federally, no, it's against the law. And so that was a conversation. And then it got into, well, it's a money grab, because she could have left him. And why didn't she leave? And when she did leave, she said she went back and he left her alone. And I'm just like, are we really having this conversation? We just heard this woman say that a man peed in her mouth. Like, listen, there's some things I don't really get into, and I understand I might be a little, I might be a nun compared to what some other people like, but I don't see anybody enjoying having pee in their mouth. Okay. Being beat down, and you come back and you think it's a money grab. Like, I just couldn't fathom how she got in it. How do we go from the person who was actually breaking the law to wagging our finger at a person who was the victim? And so my question was, what did she do to him that was against the law? First of all, let's just think about it in that respect. So, to the point where she did leave, he extorted her for $20,000. Her mom had to put up the house to get a $20,000 loan so that he wouldn't expose her sex tape. Just so many different scenarios. And I want you guys to chime in on this. Like, do you think Cassie should have some responsibility in this? Remember, she was a teenager when she met up with him with aspirations. She had, I think, was a 10 album deal, and only one was released. And basically, she spent the rest of that time earning money by throwing freak offs. And she tells a story of the abuse. She tells a story of how she was intimidated. And at some point, she developed a level of love and affection towards him. And she struggled with leaving. And I'm just wondering, how did she get in it? Help me understand how, even if you think about the R. Kelly case, a lot of people are blaming these underage girls. Okay, maybe they wanted to be there, but who broke the law? He broke the law. He had sex with underage girls. He is the one who was the perpetrator. This was a kid. Maybe there's a reason why there's a law not, for adult men not to have sex with underage girls, because we know their brains haven't formed. They're easily to manipulate and coerce or do whatever it is you want to do. Even in the Cosby, they would say, oh, the women, they knew they like to take the drugs and da 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 da. And I'm like, okay, let's just say they do like to get drugged up and have sex. Name one person who will tell you they like having unconscious sex. And that's what was happening with Bill Cosby. He would drug them to the point that they were unconscious and have his way with them. Name one person. Yeah, you came there because you wanted to have a good time, and maybe you would have gave up the goods willfully. I don't know. Let's just hypothetically. But who likes to have unconscious sex? And if you know anybody that tells you they like having unconscious sex, what I'm going to tell you is you're dealing with someone who is unstable mentally. Because how do you know you like unconscious sex? When the fuck are you unconscious? Okay. I need us to think critically instead of just judging. And it just makes me think, like, are y'all that protective over black men that she would throw a black woman under the bus? Cassie's a black woman. She's a black woman. Shout out to Marmac, who's in the chat, adding to the conversation. He said I believe 93% conviction rate in New York. Yeah, I do believe it's a bit screwed due to plea bargains from those who can't afford adequate representation. That's true too. We know a lot of the cases, and that's just countrywide. A lot of, because the states, and the federal will brag about their conviction rate. But the thing is, you just have people who are so scared and they don't want to fight the system. So that's how you get your win. It's kind of like in boxing where it's a decision. You didn't win or lose. It was a decision. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that is the truth. And there's a lot of people who are incarcerated that are innocent, that have done 20, 30, decades on decades on decades for crimes they did not commit. So we know that to be true too. I'm just saying overall, whatever it is that they present is enough to scare people to the point to where, as you're saying, Marmac, that they just say, I'll just take a deal. Obviously, y'all got me. Or it's believable by the jury. You convince the judge, you convince the jury. So yeah, that's a good point. But in the case of this case, when we're talking about Cassie, when we're talking about other people who were involved, who were beat on, had things thrown at them, and then they turned around and came back, and people are saying, well, why did they come back? If they came back willfully without any knowledge, any understanding, for those who have that opinion about the psychological effects of emotional and physical abuse, was it still okay for them to get their ass beat? Who committed the crime? The person who came back or the person who beat their ass? I need us to focus. Help me understand your perspective if you think because a person comes back that they deserve to get their ass beat. If a person does what you say or texts you and say they ready for a freak off, that they deserve to get pissed on, piss in their mouth, to get beat up during their sexcapade, their freak off or whatever it is. Help me understand how that's okay. And so the point is, sometimes we have to think about, the psychology of things. There are people who have educations, they go to school. I don't have any type of education in therapy, psychology, and things of that nature, but I know enough to know, because I bear witness to victims. I've seen how victims respond. It's no different from somebody being addicted to drugs. It's easy to say, oh, you can just get off. Growing up, you would see people who would abandon their kids and be gone for days because they wanted to do the pipe. And you could judge them and say, you don't love your kids. You love crack more than you love your kids. But once you understand the psychology of the drug and that it is a drug and there is a addiction, which is a sickness, the studies have shown, then you understand that this person doesn't necessarily love crack more than their kids. They just are on fucking drugs and they need to get off. And there has to be intervention. There has to be medical people who have the expertise to help them, or maybe just a divine intervention. God just comes through. Because some people, the point I'm making is you can't just, there's a method to the madness, is my point. There's a method to the madness. Jamar's in the chat. He says, I think Cassie is indeed a victim, but I also think she's complicit and also deserves some responsibility. Back to where we started. So what is her responsibility? If you think she's complicit, what responsibility does she hold? Just tell me in a couple of sentences what responsibility she holds. I mentioned the fact that some people argue that she kept coming back. Even when he let her go, she came back, and she said because she loved him. And people are saying, well, that's the responsibility. If she hadn't come back, then he wouldn't have beat her ass again. I'm still trying to understand how she's complicit in getting her ass beat. Because she could have came back and he could have treated her like a queen. He didn't have to beat her, and then everything would have been rainbows and butterflies. But instead, he abused her, and according to the information that we're being presented with, used her to pay sex workers to traffic and do things to her and to other people and for other people, and other people are involved. So again, if she's complicit, how is she complicit? Because she came back? That I'm throwing that out there for you. You can give me another reason. I mean, let me know what your thoughts are, because when we start victim blaming and not understanding the psychological effect that people who are very crafted abusers know who to abuse. You hear people say, when you think about pedophiles, they know which kid to go after. It doesn't mean that they don't go after the kid in a 2-parent home. They know which kid is gullible, is easy to manipulate. And they might be able to groom them. You've heard of grooming. You groom them. That means you're doing something to their mind and you're having them think a certain way. Think of all these MAGA people out here. You don't think they belong to a cult. Their brains have been fried. You think about those people, and no disrespect, but you think about Jim Jones, the people who drank the Kool-Aid per se, killed themselves and their children for a man who didn't give a shit about them, was raping their daughters. He allowed them to rape their daughters. They have been controlled mentally. No, all of us aren't going to be subjected to that. Of course, some of us are a little stronger. We're luckier. We have something that maybe some people don't. I'm not wagging my finger or blaming them or, saying one is better than the other. Obviously, if you're stronger, that is great, because then you're less susceptible to abuse. But there's a system, there's something that goes on. There's a process that these people are very intelligent. They're smart. They're wise and intelligent. They know how to manipulate people and certain people. And anybody can be manipulated. If you just let yourself sit there long enough and just let somebody say something to you over and over again, you can manipulate yourself. You can manipulate yourself into believing that you're ugly. You can manipulate yourself to believing that somebody's following you without any evidence. I mean, there's so many different ways psychologically that things that happen to us, that are done to us, cause us to be victimized. But that doesn't mean it's okay and that we're complicit. But I'm still waiting in the chat whenever you're ready. And again, this is an exchange. I know some people think I'll be getting amped, and never upset, not bothered. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. I wouldn't be having this conversation if I wasn't open to different points of view. So I just need you guys to understand that I respect whatever you have to say. But I might push back. You know what I'm saying? And I know you ain't gonna change my mind, because based on what I know to be true, facts don't change. Truth does not change. A lie can be, you can do whatever you want to a lie. You can mix it up, flip it, turn it around. You can do all kind of stuff with a lie, but the truth does not change. And the truth is, in some cases, people are conditioned and manipulated to be how they are. For Cassie, maybe it was a trauma bonding. Are you familiar with trauma bonding? Trauma bonding is when victims may return to their abusive relationships due to the cycle of abuse and positive reinforcement. So yeah, he beat me up, but he had a bad day. I should have told him to fuck himself. I shouldn't have stayed out so late. I was a little I was being a little sassy. Oh, I didn't throw it up right. When he told me to let the sex worker give it to me in the butt, I didn't do it. And so I deserve to get beat. And now that I've had a 7-day stay away from him, I forgive him. I miss him. Have anybody ever been in a situation where it was all bad and somehow you went back? At some point, maybe you got some sense, hopefully you got some sense and there was a time where you stopped, but maybe you kept going back because you didn't understand what was happening to you. You felt that you were being loved and that person, some people think they can help that person, they can heal that person, right? And so it's a lot of psychological things that go on. They're talking, oh, she was there for the money. Maybe she was, financially dependent. Remember, he extorted her mother for 20,000. Like, he told her, like, I'll follow you anywhere. Maybe she felt like with all the filthy things that she was doing, I'm not even going to say he made her do, but that she was doing in these freak offs, that she was worthless. Maybe she felt like this is the best it can be. There are kids right now, male and female, women, boys and girls, that are being stolen, picked up off the street and being pushed into sex trafficking at some point. And this is what they do. They drug them up, they gang rape them, and then they send them out into the world and let other people do unthinkable things to them. And then you think these people want to return to society as they used to know it? They may feel worthless, like nobody would want me. They may feel like trash. So they stay in the worst circumstances after they've been conditioned and been in that way so long. This is all they know. And if you leave me after they've stolen you and forced you to be a sex worker and done all of these awful, unthinkable things to you, they tell you nobody's going to want you, and you go back into the world and you don't fit in, and you feel like this is the life I'm supposed to live, because they've done a number on you mentally. They've done a number on you. So, I'm still trying to figure out what crime did she commit, because she did what he wanted her to do. She just obeyed him. And I guess when she didn't, she got her ass beat. And sometimes she tried to run, as we saw in a video where she was getting kicked and stomped, and then she came back. But what is her crime again? How was she complicit? Because she came back. Again, to understand what a person is going through, you have to understand the psychology of abuse. These people know what they're doing when they do what they do. It takes 7 attempts. According to a study, it takes 7 attempts for a survivor to leave their abuser and stay away for good. Okay? 7 attempts. Why is that? Go read about that before you make a decision on if she's complicit. I'd ask, just to feed your brain. You might still have the same, thoughts, and that's your business, but at least have a knowledge base, have an understanding that there's actually a study, and there's people out there. This is not uncommon for people to leave, and after 7 attempts, this is on average. It could be more for some, less for others. I can't remember how many times she left, which I think they were together 10 years before she finally was able to cut the cord. But 75% of women who were killed by an intimate partner were murdered when they attempted to leave or after they left the relationship. So some people are scared to leave. They don't want to be killed. They don't want their kids killed. They don't want their family killed. These people come after everybody. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, some of us are hard. We ain't worried about nothing. We ain't worried about nothing. We got that. We got guns. We got protection. Everybody don't have that. So how was she complicit? How was she complicit? Shout out to Jamar, who's in the chat, who's adding. He says, I only say this because it's on record that she requested being peed on via the sex worker's testimony. She also was the person requesting paying for said freak offs. She also mentioned if I didn't participate, he'd do it with someone else. Just being objective. I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. And I understand the perspective, but this is all psychological abuse. Remember, Cassie didn't have any money. Her mama had to put up a house to give Diddy $20,000 so that he wouldn't circulate a sex tape. So how was she paying the sex workers? He knew what he was doing when he was giving her the money to pay them, because that keeps his hands clean. You got to understand how intelligent he is, how smart he is. He thought he could, circumvent the federal, responsibility. He thought he could circumvent that. So that's what I'm looking at. I can, just at a glance, if you're just looking at a glance, you can say, yo, she paid. Oh, she texted. Oh, yeah, I want you to pee on me. That's what he wanted to say. Some people say, just hypothetically, how many of us say sweet nothings to our sweeties just because we know they want to hear it. In her case, she say sweet nothings to her abuser, because he was an abuser. I saw it with my own eyes, so I can rightfully say that without fear of contradiction. Sweet nothings, because that was going to keep him tempered. Okay, that was going to keep him from beating her ass. So that's where I go back to the fact that even though it's presented in a certain way, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what she wanted. Or maybe she did. But if she could, okay, let's just say she liked freak offs. What's the crime? Again, she didn't have the money to pay for these things, according to how the mom had to put up the house. Like what I'm just trying to get where the complicit comes in. If she just came back, because I'm basing it on the fact that she was abused, like the things that he said to her, emotionally abused and physically abused. If none of that had happened, we can say, oh, she was there for the ride. But there was some trauma. There was some trauma. There were some scare tactics. You can't go without saying that. I just don't know how you can get away from that. And it's called trauma bonding. You go back into an abusive relationship because you're used to the cycle of abuse. You know, I've told stories where I know women that have been in relationships and will not be in any other relationship unless that man is being abusive or aggressive. You know, I heard, you know, a young man tell me that, you know, these girls these days, you can't be a nice guy. The nice guys don't win. You got to be a cheater. You got to be a liar. You got to be aggressive and abusive. That's what these women like. This is what they're experiencing. And I know that doesn't speak for all of us, but that's definitely not something I would go for. You mess around and it'd be a lot of slow singing and flower ringing. I'm just saying.com. But that's not everybody. Some people, because of their upbringing, because of their environment, that's what they conceive as being a good relationship, the kind of relationship they should be in, good or bad. That's all they know. That doesn't make them complicit. That makes them damaged for sure. They need therapy. They need to, you know, find a way out of the situation that they're in. They need to know and understand and know this is not good. But if that's all you know, if that's all you've been conditioned to believe about yourself and about your world, then it's very likely that, you know, you get caught up. You can get caught up. You know, why do abusers go back? You know, somebody beating your ass, but you go back because they're manipulated. You know, they're manipulated to stay. You know, sometimes there might be kids involved. Well, you're not going to see these kids, so you stay for the kids. You know, people don't have money to go to court. They can't go hide. There's some crazy people that'll kill your kid if you leave. Like, it's, you know what I'm saying? You thinking about how you would be in a situation, but the thing is, you're not in that situation. We know why you're not in that situation because, you know, luckily, thankfully, you're just, you know, you're the way that you think. You're not being emotionally. Your brain is not damaged in the way that these people may be experiencing. There's unequal power, again, a money grab. You know what I'm saying? People don't have places to go. You got to stay on the streets. Some people will do that. Some people can't. They have hope. Again, you think that it'll get better. Like if I just be nicer, if I just let him pee on me, if I text him that I love freak offs, maybe he'll treat me better. Or, you know, again, she didn't want to be replaced, right? But think about that. Why you want somebody else to be getting beat? Have you seen? I mean, if you just think about the stories of people in relationships and how dysfunctional they are, some people are with this, but it's after a lot of processing of just disrespect and just conditioning a person and having a fear factor. They think they love them. The abuser is charming, magnetic, the energy, you know, they're smart. People think they can help the person again. And the abuser's always shifting the blame. And that's what I feel like we are doing when we're having this conversation, when we're putting the onus on the victim, is we're shifting the blame. Yes, that person came back. Yes, that person texted this, that, and the third. But what law did this person break? Just because she came back does not mean she deserved the abuse that she got. She did not deserve to be treated in that way. Okay. 1 in 4 women are victims of physical or sexual abuse. 1 in 9 men are as well victims of physical or sexual abuse. Each day, 3 women are murdered by a former or current intimate partner. 1 in 5 homicide victims are killed by an intimate partner, 1 in 3 teens, okay, we got to worry about our teens too, will experience dating abuse before high school graduation. So a lot of kids are in school, and again, they have this perception that if a man, a boy in their situation loves them, then they're going to be aggressive. They're going to be mad if they see him talking to somebody else. They're going to act jealous. They're going to try to put their hands on them. They're going to ignore them, because that's the other thing. It's a process. Then they start isolating them, or they ignore them. So you don't talk to them for weeks. So it's like, oh, I got to get his attention again. And before you know it, you're getting your ass beat. I'm just saying.com. So girls at the ages of 16 to 24 are almost 3 times more likely to experience violent relationships than women of any other age. So why do we victim blame and shame? Okay. Why do we do it? 45% of Black women and 40% of Black men have experienced contact, sexual violence, physical violence, and or stalking by an intimate partner in their lifetime. This is the reality. And so that's just me, just, putting my spin on it. Like I said, we talk about R. Kelly, and I'm focusing on Black men because we've seen the other people who have been abusers. Starts with an E. I can't think of him. Epstein, Weinstein, who's actually in federal prison. I believe he still is, looking crippled. We don't, as a Black community, we don't really talk about them, even though there may be some Black women victims involved. And that begs to bring to the conversation, which brings me back to my point, is because it's not a Black man, how many of us really care about these Black women who may have been victimized by white men? We're not talking about that. All we're talking about is free Tory Lanez. Megan was shot in the foot, and somehow she's a victim. She made it up. Oh, because she was mad at him. I don't care if she was mad at him. I don't care if she called him everything but a child of God. If she didn't shoot herself, he shot her. So why are we blaming her? Why are we shaming her? Why are we saying she was complicit? Because she rode in a car with him knowing he was lit and had a gun. So she was complicit in getting shot in the foot. Oh, and she really didn't get shot. And again, when we're talking about focusing on Black men is again, because when we talk about these other accused men, white men or of other race that have victimized men and women who may have also been Black, nobody cares. It's only when it's a Black man's being accused. And it doesn't matter that it's a Black woman. And I'm not talking about all Black men, because I know that's not across the board. I've talked to Black men who, protect Black women at all costs. Shout out to Malcolm X. I know he would not support Diddy doing this to Cassie. And I know that Malcolm X, I could say that, without fear of contradiction, even though he is resting in heaven, that I can't see him knowing and understanding a Black man's role in a Black woman's life, that this would be okay, that she invited herself into the situation, and that she is a reason why this continued to happen. It continued to happen because he continued to do it. And how did he continue to do it? With his own 2 hands or whatever he did. She didn't beat herself up. That's all I'm saying. Like, no matter what, she didn't beat herself up. He did it. That was the crime. How was she complicit in getting her ass beat? Make it make sense. And that's my perspective. I know there's different perspectives out there because I've heard them, and that's why I'm having this conversation. But why do we victim blame and shame? Even when we talk about young girls that may be molested by their stepfathers or uncles, and they say, oh, she fast, she walk around in them little short. That's why I tell her not to wear this. Women who get raped, oh, she walk out looking like a hoochie. I think that, people should be conservative, especially if you're going to be out at night by yourself, not in the protection of someone who may be able to protect you. But that doesn't make it okay if you are raped or violated or abused physically, emotional. It doesn't make it okay. Oh, well, you think about all the sex workers, these women and men, because there are a lot of men who are not, you don't hear about their stories, but they're sex workers. Their crime is being a sex worker. But that doesn't make it okay that they ended up dead because somebody thought them worthless to rape them and kill them. But people don't follow their stories because it's like, oh, they was being a sex worker. And they didn't kill themselves, though. And killing someone is a crime, or murder is a crime. I won't say necessarily killing is, because, people die all different ways, but murder is definitely a crime. So if they were murdered, how are you going to, they shouldn't have been a sex worker? Is that what it comes down to? And this is why you hear people say protect Black women at all costs, because it really sounds like in some cases, and I think it's subconscious, that some people, and I'll include women in that, Black women and Black men, don't really love and respect Black women in the way that we should. We shouldn't be pitting, each other up against each other, the Black man and the Black woman. We should be looking at it as black and white in situations when it comes to violence and crime and who's right or wrong. It's not about, oh, it's a man, a black man. You want Tory Lanez free? If God forbid he had shot me in the foot, I'll be damned if my family was saying free Tory Lanez. Oh, she's making it up. Like, what the hell? You think about these underage girls with R. Kelly, and you say, oh, they knew what they were getting into. Yes, they probably couldn't wait to give up the draws, but they were kids and they didn't break the law. There's no crime that says it's against the law for you as a 14-year-old to have sex with a adult male. It's against the law for an adult male to have sex with an underage child. Why? Because your brain has formed. That middle part of your brain has fully developed. You understand the law and you understand what you're doing, and there is a law, and you know how you can easily manipulate, especially a young person. Cassie was a young person who had been groomed. At some point, maybe she did enjoy it, but at what cost? She had to be groomed. I think about, even on another, just for the sake of argument, you think about racism. Do you think anybody's born into this world racist? No, they come up in a household where they're conditioned and groomed to think a certain way about another person. And at some point, they come to believe that. There was a time, there were some people, I remember somebody telling me that they believed that Black people had tails because they were raised to believe that Black people had tails because that's what they were taught in their homes. Why wouldn't you believe your parents? Why would you think they would lie to you about that? They live longer, they know more, they're more experienced. So even when you think about racism, how people aren't born being racist, because racism was made up too. Race is made up. But they've been conditioned and they believe it. And some people, it becomes a disease. You can't undo them. Some people, they come to a level of consciousness and understanding, reading, experience, being around people and understanding, finding the truth, because the truth doesn't change. When you've been told a person has a tail and then you go and look around and you see they don't, because the truth doesn't change. Black people don't have tails. Then you know that, in fact, you were lied to. And now you have a different perspective on Black people. Oh, they're all criminals. All of these things that you're conditioned to believe about people that causes a white woman to clutch her purse when she sees a Black male. All of these different things that you're conditioned to believe that causes you to think negatively about a person is because somebody manipulated you into believing that. And then you go out into the world treating people a certain way because you think, whatever, they're a threat to society. Whatever. I don't know if that's a good argument, but I think it is. Yeah. So just to get this out of my system, it got sad to me. If you guys aren't familiar with the rapper Papoose and his still wife Remy Ma, who's also a rapper, they've been split, I think, since 2022, and they did have there was rumors that, they had split and that she had been cheating. And then she decided to go public once him and Clarissa Shields, who you guys may know, Clarissa Shields, a 30-year-old undefeated world champion, 16 wins, 0 losses, 0 draws. She has a 19% knockout ratio. Like I said, 5 world championships, is dating Papoose since August. And whatever happened when she started making their relationship public, Remy went in on the situation. And again, she's back because they split. Remy and Papoose, they've split. And now she's back because rumor has it because of a conversation that was had. Not saying her name specifically, not saying Remy's name, but insinuating her as far as a relationship, talking about Papoose and her. Anyway, it's getting really ugly, y'all. It's getting really, really ugly, and it's almost sad. They were married, Remy and Papoose, since 2008. They have a child together. The child is about 6 or 7 years old. And it's just a lot going on with that. And I just tired myself out even just talking about it right now. So I don't know if you guys have been following it, but yeah, it's disgusting. And I wish they would get off social media and get a life. And yeah. So much more I wanted to talk about. Just thinking about Ross Baraka. I didn't get to talk about that. Shout out to Mr. Shabazz, who mentioned it on the last show in the comments. If you guys don't know, Mayor Ross Baraka, he was arrested a few weeks back by ICE, and they came and actually arrested him for no reason. He was there overseeing it was a immigration detention center that was open unlawfully. There are regulations that have to go into effect in order to open these these institutions, and it wasn't. So they were out to oversee, and we're not asked to leave. We're not threatened to leave. We're actually welcome. And he was standing outside, away from the institution at the time that he was arrested. So they sent the head honcho to come get him, I guess to make a statement. But these ICE show up in mass. They show up in mass. They don't even show their face, and it was illegal for them to arrest him. So they took away some of his time by arresting him for a few hours. He was released. 13 days later, a judge dismissed it, wagged their fingers at the ICE detention people. And one thing I want to mention is, watching The Handmaid's Tale, one of the things that was discussed in The Handmaid's Tale, this was a book that was written back in I want to say 1985, okay, talking about all the things we see unfolding right here today in life. So if you haven't watched that series, I'm on the last season. I think it's season 8. And even in The Handmaid's Tale, they talked about June, who was one of the main characters in the show, said that her mom was telling her how they just came and abducted her, dragged her out of her house, tried her in a kangaroo court. I had to look up what kangaroo court was. All I could think of was a pouch. So how is this associated with a court? But a kangaroo court is what they call an unofficial court, where they just take you to trial without any good evidence. And she said they had masks on. And this is a fictitious book. This is a fictitious series, okay? And now we're seeing this in real life with ICE, that they came with masks, and it took this lady in The Handmaid's Tale. They did the exact same thing to Ross Baraka, the mayor of Newark, New Jersey. So it's some weird stuff going on, you guys. You got to stay woke. We're all susceptible, not just people who are undocumented. They've fought to make it so that even natural born citizens can be arrested and taken to another country and detained. This is what they're doing. So we are in fact, a constitutional crisis. And I know it doesn't feel like it, because we still have certain freedoms. As in other countries under dictatorship, they get to still live their life to some degree. But for those of us who haven't felt the pinch yet, God forbid, did you feel the pinch? But it's happening, you guys. It's really, really happening. And I hope that we can get a grip on it. Just to touch on the Baltimore Governor Westmore, if you guys read the headlines, he vetoed a reparations bill. That's what the headlines say. He vetoed a reparations bill. What he vetoed was a reparations study bill. So there was a Governor Westmore of Maryland. He vetoed a bill that would have created a commission to study and recommend reparations for African Americans who were impacted by slavery. He did this in a letter to Senate. He explained that he said it was a difficult decision because he believed it's not time for another study. According to my recollection, I think they've had at least 5 studies. So this would be the 6th study. They want to use taxpayer dollars, which was approved by the Senate by both. It was a majority rule vote to have this study, to use taxpayer dollars. He said there's been studies. It's time to act. He said we don't need another study. Now is a time for continued action that delivers results for people we serve. So that's what the Governor Westmore said. And I think it's important that we read past the headlines, because the headlines are clickbait to get our attention. And we read that and we go, what? How? Black men gonna refuse a reparations bill? No, he refused a reparations study. He said, stop playing in our face. And this is just my perspective. I know other people may think differently. Stop playing in our face. We have the data. We have the information to support why our people need reparations. Now is the time to start allocating that. So this basically, once all these studies are done, and if it's approved, basically what happens next is the reparations that they're proposing is an apology statement, monetary compensation, debt forgiveness, property tax rebates, social services, and home buying assistance, among other options. So this is where he wants to go. According to what he's saying, I'm picking up what he putting down. He done with the study. Stop playing in our faces. Y'all know y'all wrong. You got people bringing people from Africa, bringing Afrikaners here off of them having to give land back that they stole. Shout out to apartheid. And y'all still want us to study how Black people need reparations? We built this whole country. Okay, we built this whole country. Our ancestors built this country, and we continue to build by way of institutionalizing us, by way of taxing us, overtaxing us. You know what you're doing. And so I just wanted to touch on that too. But I just want to encourage you guys, as the late great Mr. Joe Madison would say, read with a third ear, listen with a third eye. Read with a third eye, and listen with a third Read with a third eye, listen with a third ear. Okay. So that's it. I'm so happy that we got this time. Now I'm gonna go and turn up with my family and celebrate my baby cousin's graduation. And I want to encourage you guys to have be empathetic. You know, you might not be able to sympathize or relate to what a person's going through. You may not even know they're going through something, but the reality is we're all going through something, and we don't all talk about it. So be kind. Be kind to people. Just have a little patience. You know, all the wild things you want to say, maybe not say it. That level, that octane you want to go up to, maybe don't do it. You might want to. I'm gonna tell you my trick. I say it all in my head. I can say the worst things about a person in my head, and they may never know. Instead of saying it out, you know, out of your mouth, because it might be the straw that breaks the camel's back. It might cause somebody to react in a way that they don't necessarily, it might just change their life and yours for the worse. And it'd be such a petty, unnecessary thing caused by whatever stress they're going through. So just be patient. There's a lot going on. Just with the topics that we talked about, people are taking all of this in. People have their own problems. People are losing their jobs. They don't have a proper income. You know, they may be going through divorces. I mean, there's a lot going on, you guys. We gotta look out for each other, and community can be just having empathy, just having patience with people. That's not saying be a rug that people can walk on over, but just know that everybody's going through something. And like the song say, don't push me because I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. It's still relative. And if you go listen to that song, you'll understand what I'm talking about. That was some of the first hip hoppers. Okay. So yeah, or you can just go by Ice Cube. Check yourself or you wreck yourself because it's bad for your health. You know what I'm saying? We do need to check ourselves sometimes. Sometimes we are reacting in a way that's unnecessary, and sometimes you just have to say, I got to let that go. You got to choose your battles. I just want to encourage you to do that. And I want to walk out of here and leave you with a little levity. Which one do I want to do? I got a George Carlin clip, and I have a son who asks his father, what is politics? Okay, so let's just do the clip about this George Carlin, because I loved him. I'm so sorry that he's not with us, but he left us with a lot of levity, intellectual levity that is still relative. So I could, appreciate him for his contribution. So I'll play that with George Carlin as we wrap it up. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Let me go ahead and give my thank you to all of you who watched live with me and chatted. For those who watched later, I love and appreciate y'all as well. Thank you so much. Okay, let me go ahead and get this George Carlin clip in.
We were basic double standard. This country was founded by wanted to be free. Am I right? A group of slave owners who wanted to be free. So they killed a lot of white English people in order to continue owning their black African people so they could wipe out the rest of the red Indian people and move west and steal the rest of the land from the brown Mexican people, giving them a place to take off and drop their nuclear weapons on the yellow Japanese people. You know what the motto of this country ought to be? You give us a color, we'll wipe it out. We were founded on a very basic double standard. This country...
And that's what he said. We were founded on a basic double standard. So that's what it was. And yeah, and I got music playing too. But okay, listen, you guys enjoy your day. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you next Saturday, same time, same place. Much love, y'all. Much love.